Hello, peep-a-leaps. I really don't know. I do have a message. I do. How is everyone? Welcome to my channel, Sirena Barefoot Rose. Grand afternoon. So, I might have to write trigger warning on here. Because, look, I'm just going to say it. We all know about that SA that goes on in the world, right? From children to adults. Okay? From children to adults. Ladies and gentlemen, that comes in all forms. And I can only speak from my own personal experiences and being a woman. From a young child to adulthood. If a small child comes to you and says something like that, please listen. It's scary enough. Being assaulted, no matter what age you are, is scary in itself. And we'll tend to feel like we did something wrong and gross and embarrassed and all kinds of things. I don't want to get too much into it. I'd rather do that on a private sector. But keeping it to yourself, I know sometimes you're going to think that's the best bet, but only because you don't know the other side of it. Telling somebody else about it that you trust. But you never know who that's going to be. You never know how someone's going to... I mean, you should be able to, 303, kind of be able to tell. But not keeping that to yourself. Believe it or not, it helps. My whole life I've kept so many things. I suffered in silence for so long. I've gone through so many things and kept it because there was other people involved or for whatever reasons, right? It doesn't matter the reason. Talking about it really helps, especially to people you trust. Maybe you don't want to talk about it to anyone you really know. Then reach out to somebody you're comfortable with. Talking about it. You're not, I just heard, you're not alone. You're not alone in that. Women, especially, going out to bars, drinking, meeting somebody, or going out on a date, and maybe you're having drinks or something, and all of a sudden you black out or whatever, you don't remember, but you know that something happened to you. That somebody, had their way with you. That is RAPE. When you get down to it. Society will have you think it has to be, this is the way it used to be, that it has to be a stranger walking down an alley that holds a gun or a knife to your throat. No. It's not like that. Women, you have lied about it. Shame on you. I think you should go to prison. Or get your head bashed in. No. 444. Because there's actual women out there that get taken advantage of in ways, and it could almost ruin someone's life. And these people, they go out and they continue to do it. They think there's nothing wrong. One, we're ashamed. Chirp. Please. Chirp. From personal experience. Many times over. Child to adult. It's never okay. And it's not your fault. If you say no, no is no. If you're unconscious and you can't say no or you don't remember because you blacked out, it's still wrong. You weren't in your right mind. But what matters is you. You know what's right and what's wrong for you. You know if something disgusts you. 555. No, I'm not even going to get into that because that has nothing. You just talk to somebody. You don't have to go through these things alone. I was going to say as women, we need to stand together, but as just being alive, regardless of your race, age, or gender, people need to come together. You need a support group, or maybe just one person, whatever. Getting it out really helps, however that is for you. This is something, a message I want to get out. This isn't exactly how I wanted to do it, but there's so many things to say. But you don't have to carry that weight on your shoulders. It'll eat you up from the inside out. Cause all kinds of dis-ease and discomforts in your body. It wreaks havoc on your system. It wreaks havoc. We can't have that. You're way too beautiful and nice for that. We have to bring it, the darkness, the secrets, that we have to bring it to light, to be uncovered. And it's not just in our own personal lives, but everything that's going around. You know, people are so fixated in just their phone, or most people can't see anything else anywhere else because they can't see past their own nose. I used to be the type of person didn't want to know my neighbors and all that. Well, why not? We should all look out for one another. Power in numbers. It takes a village to raise a child. We're all children. We're all somebody's child. Unless, of course, you're a clone. Then you were in a test tube or whatever. You know what I mean? But we're humans. We're walking around. We have to look out for one another. Nobody else is going to do it. Wouldn't you like to know that if something bad was to happen, Sarah down the street, hey, there's a suspicious vehicle. You know, I drove by and there's something that, you know, I didn't know if you knew or if you're home. You know what I mean? Like, look out for one another. Get to know your neighbors. And if you get to know your neighbors, say you have a whole block. Well, each of you can grow food and you can share it amongst each other. So nobody has to go hungry. Nobody should ever be hungry when food just naturally grows out of the ground like clockwork every year. There should be no hunger. Water is abundant. We shouldn't have to pay for what's given to us. Come together. Unity. Love. You want to know what it's like what Jesus spoke about, what it's like to be close to God and be like God and be like Jesus and walk like Jesus is? You know what that is? It's love. Compassion and caring for not only yourself, but for others as well. Because what you do to another human, you're doing to God. They're giving me, I heard one of Jesus' parables about, the mote in your eye, but how can you say you're forgive or what? I don't know. Something about how can you hate your brother and say you love God? How can you hate somebody and then say you're close to God? I don't know. That's just how it's coming through. If you just listened with your heart, 11:11, with what Jesus speaks about, it's all right there. I just got a notification. It's all right there. Give alms, service. What did Jesus say? What did he say? Not the 10 Commandments, but what's the first thing he says? That you love yourself and you love God, you love your neighbor. Or something like that. You get the gist of it. Without those words, the same thing literally is love God, love yourself, love your neighbor. You know what I mean? The only commandment Jesus, whatever, was saying, he did talk about don't beat me up about the Bible and all that. I'm just saying the one thing that comes to mind is that you love. Because when you come from a place of love, you don't have to worry about all those commandments and sins. You know why? Because you would not walk and live in that. The greatest sin is not loving yourself or loving God. If you love yourself, you have to love God. If you love God, you have to love yourself. You can't, and others. There's no space for anything else. It doesn't mean you don't get upset. People can't be assholes, whatever. Because people are people. They're going to do what they're going to do. Remember how you were before you got on your roll, before you got into God, before you got into self-healing, before you got into wanting to be closer to yourself. Do you remember how you were in your 3D world, in your 3D land, before you were awakened to what is going on and who you are? Remember where you come from. Because you were once that, but now you're not. Don't think you're better. I know you don't, because that's not part of the path. You don't think you're better. You just want everyone else to get it and to be there. And it's okay not to want to be around people who don't see eye to eye. Jesus hung out with those who he was called, where he was called to go, for one. Don't forget that. Jesus worked for God, as you and I. So you might be called places that aren't so great. It doesn't mean you have to hang out constantly. You go in, what'd they do? They went in, Jesus healed a bunch of people, he spoke, they helped people out, then they moved along. Your closest circle should be like that. Like, you want to get somewhere in life? Do like Jesus did. He called them disciples. We'll call them like-minded. The same agenda, which is love. You have love, you have peace and all of that. Yeah, things can happen in this world, but you're above that now, right? You live in the world, but you're not of it. That's what he means. The inner man, where God resides. The closer you get, 1444, the more knowledge opens up. It doesn't open up, it unlocks in you. Why do you think they say when somebody's human passes on. They passed on. Their soul passed on. The only death is truly here in the 3D. The decay and stuff like that, not the energy that you are. Isn't it? You know what I mean? Having respect for oneself is not putting up with bullshit no matter who it is. You don't have to. You can be like, if that's the way you think about me, that's the way you're going to be, then we have nothing more to say. But we get tired and afraid of being alone and all these things. And I get it. God, do I get it. I wouldn't be here talking about it if this wasn't things that I haven't lived through, that I live through now. Still even. It gets easier and better. How good it feels to have boundaries and not have to deal with things like you had to in the past. Like if you're abused by somebody and they're your babysitter, or an uncle, or a cousin, or something where you have to see them all the time as a child. Scared to death. Last thing you want to do, children are so resilient. Last thing you want to do is go see that person who abuses you. I get different situations. I've been in them. I've been in the battered situation. I've been in all those situations. I was a child in those situations. I'm not speaking from things I've heard or somebody else's story. It's mine. I've experienced. I can talk to you and tell you everything I went through and the different paths. I have things written down. I have knowledge. I have life experience. You can't get better than that. And I've got 55 years of it. I'm 55 in case you're wondering. But my abuse didn't start. It started actually before I ever came out of my mother's womb. I was knocking on heaven's door my whole childhood. One minute I'd be there, the next minute I'm blue. Asthma. I had to live in oxygen tents in the hospital on a little tiny bed with plastic with all the fucking condensation dripping down it. It was horrible. Couldn't touch anyone, couldn't do anything. I had to live in the bubble so I could live. Not counting when I wasn't in that bubble, everything else that I was around. So I get it. And I get it from two sides now. When I was younger, shit just never, I just kept going. Beat up. RAPE, nearly killed. Choked to passed out. Trials. Pregnancy during all that time. Never skipped a beat. In the hospital all night with my son because he was sick right after I just got home from the police department at nighttime, and I'd been there like 10 hours already after what happened, just all day. One hospital to the next, to everyone treating you like shit. Been there. Didn't even get to process anything and kept going. And then older years, not as brutal as that one was, but it doesn't matter. You're not in your right mind and somebody has their way with you. That's disgusting. Well, it hit me different this time, so I got to see the other side of it, which told me my survival mode like that, I'm growing. I was a certain way my whole life to survive, to get me to this point. Because of everything that I had dealt with, if it bothered me the way things get to me now, I never would have made it this far. Still going. I'm Lorax. I speak for the trees. You're the trees. Children, animals, women, people. Children and women. Thank you. We're having a full circle moment. They brought me back to when I was that little girl and I said, I just know, Mom, I'm here to help women and children. Everything I go through is for a reason. I was a child. I'd already been through enough, but I didn't know what that meant because I had no memory of it. A lot of it. I didn't have time to cry. I didn't know how to cry for myself then. Thank God. I don't much like it, but I very much like it now. Not the crying for yourself, but feeling. I don't ever want to be put in that position again. Note to self. Listen to yourself. Listen to your body. Everything happens for a reason. We get through it. Here I am. At least you're alive. At least you're alive and you have your limb. I mean, maybe you don't. I shouldn't say it like that because some people don't have all their limbs or can walk, and some people are in wheelchairs and can never do that again. If you're healthy and you can get around, shame on you for feeling so sorry for yourself when you could go out and do everything. Shame on you. Fuck you, basically. Get it together. With that, I'm going to go. Wasn't trying to bum you guys out. I'm just, no. You never are alone. You don't have to be alone through any of these things, especially now with fucking social media. Although I can't stand, and if I can't talk to somebody on the phone, I prefer to see people face to face, but that's just not always the case, right? But if you're just a text messenger and all I get is that, who the fuck are you? Nobody knows. I just think you're about fuckery for the most part. I mean, there's somebody I email back and forth. I still don't know if that's who he really says he is. Don't matter. I like the conversation. It's not up to me. I did get a phone call after midnight from a private number last night. Not fucking cool. Not fucking cool. If anybody wants to work with me or anything, and I don't know who the fuck you, don't call me on my cell phone. You get a hold of me through my email, and then we'll go from there. If I don't contact you, then there's your sign. I don't know where that came from, but out left field. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play today. The Outfield, that was the name of the band I was trying to think of, or that came to mind, but when I said left field, I was like, what is the name of that band? Yeah, Outfield. Namaste. Peace. I love you guys. Have a grand day. It's so sunny out. Guess what? I'm barefoot still. What? I know. Barefoot. I love you. Ciao.